Well, thank you very much to Minister Bartlett for those words and update on the tourism industry. A lot going on there. You would have heard us talking about it throughout this conference, throughout the morning, the afternoon session. A lot has been said on the recovery of the tourism sector. Well, there's another sector that we have touched upon during this conference so far, but there's a lot more to talk about when we look at this industry, and we're talking about agribusiness. And it's interesting that somebody thought to put these two words together, agriculture and business, because agriculture really is business. We're going to hear a lot more about that from our guest in this segment. Her name is Marlene Porter. She is the manager of agribusiness at Jampro. Welcome, Marlene.
Thank you, Kalila.
How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Happy to be here talking on agribusiness.
Yes, well, tell us exactly what is agribusiness.
Well, agribusiness cuts right across the full food chain. It starts from the inputs that go into the production of goods straight to the point where the products reach the consumer, right through the retail chain to the consumer. Within the agribusiness sector, you do have a number of subsectors. We have the fresh produce sector, and that, of course, we all know we love our fruits and vegetables in the raw form, unfrozen, just really fresh. Then we have our agro-processed goods, which are those now that are processed. We have in that category things like our jerk sauces and spices, the baked goods, all of those kinds of products. Aquaculture and mariculture and fishing is another subsector that we work with. That forms part of the agribusiness sector. And of course, we have livestock and poultry. I hope I haven't forgotten any of them, but those are the major sectors that we talk about.
So it really is no different from saying agriculture, because it's similar things. It's the business side of it.
Where we go up the value chain with it and talk about the processing side of the business as well. And actually it takes into consideration the logistics components involved, like the cold storage and aspects of it, that things that go directly into the whole food, the whole process of getting the food from the farm to the consumer.
Right.
All of that process.
I know from a government perspective, that's the reason they combined those ministries at one point, because they're so critical to each other.
Absolutely.
Right. So have there been any new developments in the sector in Jamaica?
Wow. There have been, for me, it's a really exciting times for agribusiness in Jamaica. We have seen a number of new developments taking place, new technology, in fact, and agtech coming into the agribusiness space. Key in this space is what we call the controlled environment agricultural systems. These are where we have like greenhouses. You're familiar with the greenhouses. Now we have things like hydroponics included in it, the vertical farming, all of these kinds of systems.
What's vertical farming?
Oh, this is the sort of farming. It looks like the same green.
Like
exactly. So you use less land space, and you can get your planting going up rather than spreading out in this way. So you build in efficiencies in that way as well. So those are the sort of conversations we're having in the hydroponic space. The College of Arts, Science and Education, they are in fact running some hydroponic program there. And we also have investors that we're working with. Some have landed the project already, and others that we're working with to bring these kinds of controlled environment systems into the agriculture space.
So that would be pretty cool for like vine plants, like tomatoes.
Exactly, and peppers and things like that. And,
pumpkin too heavy?
Maybe. But I think, though, that even it is within these systems, you're also able to use other technology like the smart technology. So you now can use sensors, so you measure exactly how much water the plant is getting, how much fertilizer it is to get. So you have these kinds of smart systems that also work in these controlled environments as well. Other developments would include things like organics. You know, organics is a big deal. A lot of interest is taking place in the organic space. Healthy people are thinking more healthy ways of eating and taking care of themselves. So we're working on organics projects, not just for the food side of it, but also using the waste to create inputs into the organic sector. So
interesting.
Yes, so we do have a number of interesting projects there. We are orchards. We normally talk about what most of us are familiar with are the open field kind of orchard type setting. But even within that space, we're seeing exciting new technology kind of coming into the space. So precision farming, where you are now able to properly deal with the rotation of your crops and manage it in such a way, the sort of management that allows you to bring that level of precision to how you farm so that you're getting more efficient output and efficient ways of operating in the space.
So
Really
tell me,
exciting.
what makes the agribusiness sector such a great business opportunity?
It starts right from the top. If you look in the papers and listen to from the Prime Minister coming down, we have agriculture, agribusiness has been a major focus sector, priority sector for the government of Jamaica. And when you have the government prioritizing that, then you know that you're going to get the sort of attention. And it is not just doing it in a vacuum. The sector itself has a lot of worth. If you think about it, the whole issue of food security is critical right now. And we have to be able to produce our foods in a competitive way. We have to be able to feed our population. So this kind of focus is really critical to us, and exports is a big part of what we need to sustain our economy, and so we're able to get the sort of exports going as well, coming out of the sort of focus that we have here. But one of the things that I think is important about this sector is that we are able to attract, we're able to position ourselves in this space because we have, the government has a lot of, we're transitioning out of sugarcane. So we have a lot of good arable lands out there. And so we're inviting investors to come in and use up some of these lands to plant different kinds of crops that we also have developed opportunity profiles on. So there are opportunities in that space that makes it really, really very exciting at this time.
Right. So, COVID hit last year, the pandemic hit. We've been surviving it now for the past about 20 months or so. And pretty much every sector has been affected. But has agribusiness been affected? Because people always need food. No matter what happens, you need food.
We certainly took a really hard hit in the agriculture sector. There was a lot of work that had to be put behind it from the government side and the private sector. And we have to commend the private sector too for just really working in partnership with the government during this crisis. The lockdown of the tourism sector, coming out of that, tourism. A lot of the produce that we sold into the tourism sector was there. So it created a huge excess on the market, and it had to be managed. So the government stepped in and worked with key agencies like RADA, the Rural Agricultural Development Agency, and the Agricultural Investment Corporation to help to still take this excess, store them, and market them.
I remember
you saw the campaign.
They were almost giving away, like they had these box deals where you can get a big box with all kinds of several produce in there.
So it really helped. It really helped the players in the sector. It helped the farmers. It helped the producers. That sort of support that came in, and they also had some other packages as well that helped to tide them over. One of the good things that I think happened in this period is that the government continued to help these companies to produce. Because, not because you have the excess, you're going to now just stop doing everything.
Right.
They continued the production. So right now, what we're seeing is 2020 over 2019, we had some growth. I mean, it was not big, but just for the first quarter of this year already, we're seeing over 20% increase in the production, and we're expecting that this trajectory will continue throughout the rest of the year. And exports as well have shown significant growth over last year, over 20% for the period that we now have data for. So has it bounced back? I think absolutely.
It's
we're
on the way
seeing it
there.
on
And
so we're really
I think
happy
one of
for
those
that.
lessons that would have come out of COVID as well is focusing on the manufacturing side and the linkages that are there. So you don't have
Yes.
to, all that produce doesn't have to go to waste.
Exactly.
What
And-
you can do is you
yes.
turn them into value-added products. So you
The
make your jellies, your
value-added
jams. I've seen some
purees, put them into beverages, these kinds of things. And that was an active role that JAMPRO really took on during that period to work with the ministry and other stakeholders to see how we can move these excess produce into the productive sector. Because with the lockdown, we really couldn't get into some of the markets that we would have liked to get into. So we had to think of creative ways to use the produce here. What is good is that the Jamaican population supported it. You know, they really did buy fresh. And so, you know, that really was quite good. It helped us.
You mentioned that you saw the growth of 20%, 2021
Over 20%, yes.
2021 versus 2020, right?
Yes, in exports.
In exports, right. What other signs of recovery have you seen in the industry?
You have what we are seeing too is the way in which the farmers are working. You can see that there is a greater level of interest in it, and they are not. You know, in the past you have something happening and you see people pulling away from it. I think that there is a recognition, and I think COVID helped to bring it right up to your face. You know, it says that having had this experience, it has helped us to understand that, you know, there is a market for the produce. The food security, as I mentioned earlier on, is really, really something that we have to concern ourselves about. We see nearshoring taking place where a lot of the countries, some of our partners who are our markets that bought from far countries are looking to us now to supply them with some of these produce. So it created the opportunities. And so you're seeing that the interest is there. We find a lot of small farmers, a lot of small farmers have approached us to see how they can get on board and how to begin their production and get markets as well. So I think that it has we've seen it in different ways impacting here.
So what are some of the products that we're exporting right now?
Would you believe it, Khalila? Yam. Yellow yam is big on our exports, our earnings for export.
Who's buying up the yam?
The UK, US, Canada, those are major markets.
Since
for
when I like yam?
I'm telling you, we have big
the
diaspora community there. But hello, we do have a lot of companies, the tourists that come here to Jamaica. They're taking back the stories, you know, with the hotels using more local produce in their cuisine. We're seeing that kind of interest is building. When they go back into their own markets, then they actually begin to ask for these produce as well. So.
Well, let me ask you this. So I know Staten recently released its inflation numbers, and one of the areas that is contributing to inflation is food prices, specifically like the yam and banana and those. So does one have anything to do with the other? So are we exporting our yam? That's why yam's so expensive locally?
Not really. I think that you have to remember that some of the inputs that we now have to get with the pandemic, we had issues along the supply chain. And so we have seen some increases in prices as well. And it feeds right through into that area. But if the market is paying for the yam, we're going to see the yam moving into that space anyway, because the demand is there and the price is there, so, you know, it's going to follow that. But to complete your question, though, you had asked about the kinds of products that we export. Our Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee is also a big ticket item. Rum, other beverages as well, or baked products, and how could I not mention way up front our jerk seasoning sauces, spices, herbs, which we're really well known for out there in the market. So those are just some of the major products that we export here.
Well, when we think about farming, we traditionally think about crops, right? But Animal farming, does that also fall under your purview?
Absolutely. The livestock area and poultry, we work with these investors in this space as well. And in fact, there are significant opportunities in the small ruminant space where we can actually supply our small ruminants with like our sheep and goat and these kinds of animals. And we do have a sizable market for these produce. So if we're able to consistently grow these, farm the pigs and the sheep and the goats, then, I mean, this is a huge cut in our import bills, because we're talking about import substitution here. And so...
Yeah, here oxtail is $1,600 a pound. Go farm some ox.
I'm telling you.
Some cow. Yeah. What oxtail is cow?
Absolutely. And so what you find, though, is that even the poultry sector, we tend to lump them together, but they're really kind of separate as well. Right. But there are also big opportunities there to continue to work on this area.
Right. So very many opportunities. Like you said, there's demand for Jamaican products. I was speaking to Minister Shaw just before you, and he said the ackee has been seeing great demand as well.
Yes, and that is why we have been promoting investments in orchards for ackee, orchards for mangoes, orchards for avocado and breadfruit, because these are high-demand crops in our export markets. Recently, we sent off an aircraft with mangoes to the U.S. And you should see, I mean, so much mangoes going into the market, and the lines started from early in the morning when the buyer sent the videos to us. It was really interesting, Khalil, to see what was happening out there. Our mangoes really taste good, and one of the good things...
And so many of them go to waste here.
I'm telling you.
You can't eat them fast enough.
Right. But we do... there is something about the taste profile of our products, our mangoes and our ackee. But the ackees that come from other countries are not in as high demand as ours, because there's something about the texture, the quality, the taste of our coffee. Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee is premium out there. Our cocoa is premium as well, and so many other. Even the yam. You go into markets in the UK, and you're seeing yams in there. And when you look at the prices and the price tag for the Jamaican yellow yam, it's up there. So you know that the demand is there, and it has something to do. People are not going to pay more if it doesn't taste better. So taste profile is actually a big deal. And our microclimate and the just the overall ecosystem supports the quality of the produce that we get here.
Traditionally when we think exports, we think those traditional trading partners, United States, United Kingdom, people in Europe, and so on. But to what extent have we been pursuing countries with cultures similar to ours? So you have people in Africa who have similar cuisine to ours. They like the yam the same way. In other parts of the Caribbean, especially the Spanish-speaking Caribbean, you have similar taste profiles. They like the spicy food. So to what extent do we pursue those markets?
We are not limiting ourselves. We know what our major markets are, but we are right out there, right across the globe, promoting our products, bringing attention to what we have here. At the end of the day, one has to look at the logistics to move across the different regions, the sort of cost that would be involved. But overall, we have exported into these markets our sausage. You talk about the taste profile there in Africa, for example, and here our jerk is over there, our jerk seasoning, much of our teas and these kinds of products are there because of this kind of closeness in the taste profile. So our markets, even though the US, Canada, UK, we always talk about them as our major markets, we also deal with markets in this way. We have had requests out of Dubai and supply buyers in that market as well. So we do have that kind of synergy, that kind of opportunity, and we will not step away from it at all. So we welcome buyers as well as investors to consider this and consider the markets.
So what are the big investment opportunities that you're seeing in this space right now?
Well, I believe that we do have, I mentioned the orchard crops, and orchard crops for those four superfruits that I mentioned, the super crops, the mangoes, avocados, breadfruit, and the breadfruits and papayas. But we also have other crops that other opportunities outside of the orchards. The government, through the AIC, Agro Investment Corporation, has established a number of agro parks, and these agro parks are intensive areas that are created where you can bring different investors in that space where they can share the kinds of services like infrastructural services, water, whatever it is, even equipment. They can have those shared services there. And also in an agro park, to get global gap certification is pretty expensive independently. So when you're in that kind of setting, you share the costs in that way as well. So agro parks represent a huge opportunity for investors to consider going into. So, we do have that.
Agro parks.
The agro parks, those parks
so
that are more contiguous areas that are.
So the opportunity is for them to come here and set them up, or do we have existing parks that
We have existing parks, but it's interesting that you asked that. We have the existing parks that are managed by the Agro Investment Corporation, and we have different size investors operating in them, smaller ones from maybe 3 to 5 acres up to over 100, 200 acres. So the scale is different in the park. But outside of that, we have investors who are interested and can come in and set up their own sort of system like that. And they can use it in a way. One of the things we're promoting under our national 5-year agribusiness strategy is is mother farm concept. So it gives the opportunity for these large investors to work with smaller investors in that way, and have a kind of contract farming arrangement so that they can actually transfer knowledge, transfer technology, as well as use the outputs from these farms. So, so we do have those are the agro parks are additional opportunity areas. We have built out opportunity profiles around a number of these crops that I spoke to, even within the livestock space. So we have done that, and investors can actually use these as a starting point. It takes you through the kind of return on investment that is associated with any particular product, and so you can use that to begin to consider or expand into your investment space. And bankable projects as well is one of the areas that JAMPRO works on to see how we can put the projects together in a way that the investor can actually take it to the bank. We have done a call for lands recently, and for the private sector now to tell us what lands they also have so that we can package opportunities around them and also bring the investors to these spaces as well.
Well, thank you so much for those insights, Marlene, and we look forward to the developments in agribusiness. A lot going on.
A lot is going on. Exciting space right now.
Yes, indeed. Well, viewers, we're going to learn quite a bit more about this sector right now because investments in agriculture are actually on the rise as the opportunity to leverage agri-tech and Jamaica's strategic location to tap into global supply chains for fresh produce becomes more pressing. Investment in Jamaica's 4 million hectares. Did you know we had 4.4 million hectares of agricultural land? And that serves the local population of almost 3 million plus, approximately 4 million tourists visiting Jamaica annually. So, of course, that presents a strong foundation for investment in agriculture, given that we have this population between the locals and the tourists who are visiting here. And this is further supported by the growing demand globally for Jamaican cuisine, as you would have heard Marlene mention. So this session that we're about to go to now will share some insight on success stories for investments in agriculture and highlight the current opportunities. Let's join that session right now. This is Agricultural Fireside Chat, the Agri-Investor's Story.